Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I am Angelique Jackson from Variety, and before we are joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our sponsors. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you so much for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the star of The Harder They Fall, Nat Love himself, Jonathan Majors. Hello, sir.
Hello. How are you?
Well, I just finished another rewatch of this film, which is fortunately streaming on Netflix and also in theaters. But it strikes me every time the way that, I know you're a guy who was raised in Texas, but like the transformation that you make into Nat Love, and even that drawl that I know you have is a different one for him. So where did you
Yeah.
start? Where was the first place that you went to figure out, okay, here's my take on that?
Wow. I guess the first thing that comes up is tabula rasa is kind of how I always begin. I kind of go, all right, let me just remove everything I think any preconceived notions of what a Western is, what a cowboy is, just kind of get rid of all those things. And I guess after reading the script in the building of Nat, I started with I think the first thing that probably came in was Tina Turner, actually.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
Um, I really like Tina Turner. And I kind of listen to those. It's the smallest things, like little angel whispers where I go, hmm. And Tina Turner's from Tennessee. And Nat Love is also from Tennessee. And so I went, okay, that's good. So I started listening to a lot of her music. And there was something about her aggression. There's something about her, and also elegance that she had that was very independent and original. And I really, really grabbed onto it, and also her way of speaking, which was quite poetic in some ways. And then I made the connection of the trauma that Nat would have experienced and what that would do to his voice and his speech. And so I'm from Texas. Nat's from Tennessee, and we've traversed through Texas and Mexico and all these other places to get to where we find him in the film, where our story begins. And oddly, I think that's kind of where it started for me, just understanding how he would sound, um, and allowing the internal life to kind of match that sound. Yeah.
And, this was a prolonged process of figuring out who Nat was because, just before y'all were supposed to start filming, COVID shut y'all down. So then you spent the next months in New Mexico kind of living in that world. What was something you picked up from that time that really informed Nat as you evolved this
Well,
character?
the I felt that one of the to the question, his contemplative nature, that there are times when Nat is just thinking, and I think that's something that in our modern world we actually don't do much of. We have these things that will think for us, you know. We don't really have any questions anymore. Not really, not really. I can figure out a lot about someone or even about myself, via Wikipedia, via Insta, Google, Facebook, chat, tweet. You can find out anything. But this was a man who didn't have those things. That didn't have those resources, and he had himself. And so there's a searching quality to him, and that's where the archetype of this hunter kind of came in. Because Nat Love, amongst being an outlaw and being an orphan, he's a hunter. You know, I've he's gone, you know, 3 and 30 years. As the song says, finding the people who were responsible for this deep violation. And so, in that time, amongst other things, really grounding the ring, which I could tell you about, and and his physicality. It was that quietness, that being able to occupy, one's own questions and one's own thoughts, and primarily the thought of why did this happen to me, and who did it, and what am I going to do when I come up against them, you know?
Well, let's talk about that quest for vengeance. This is very much a revenge tale, but a discussion about revenge at what cost? What is the point of his cycle? Does he, at the end of the day, end where he hoped he would be? How
Right.
did you find and play that journey?
Well, revenge was was the vehicle, right, to get to fairness, right? And so I think you and I spoke about this. We speak a lot, so I don't know if I've said this to you, but
We
I,
did,
I,
but other people may not have heard it
I'll
or read
say
it.
I'll say it again because it just helps, me kind of still under I'm still discovering that, and now getting to see it's like seeing your friend, in the world. It's like, oh, there he is, but you think you know him, but other people have another perspective on him. So this stuff helps, I guess. So I say that to say, the revenge was a vehicle to fairness because the thing that happened to him at such a young age, and sometime and arrested development, again, Wikipedia, right? You can find things out, arrested development that Nat Love, our hero is essentially a 10-year-old boy. He's wrestling with that. He has a 10-year-old boy mentality, when it comes to certain things, especially the things that have formed him. And so what is it to be fair, and it just so happens that in this moment, in regards to his what I call gaping hole, the thing that defines him the most, it is revenge that's going to fill it up. At least he believes that, but it's to fill it up in order to get to fairness. So I say all that to say that he had to double down, so it's for love, right? You've taken the things I've loved the most from me, and I have to get those things back. And the only way I can avenge them is to seek revenge in those who have done ill to me, those who have trespassed against me, as Rufus Buck says. And it seems as if, in the playing and in the embodying of, Nat Love, it seemed as if this was going to work, that this was going to make him whole again. Um, but as we find, and as I found in that, which is the beauty of the final scene, between Rufus and Nat, that in that moment, the question you're asking, Nat has to wrestle with, is this going to make things right? But the road where I'm trying to get to is fairness, right? And so you can't change it up just because it's not comfortable anymore. He's got to do it, And so, I mean, it's still an ongoing question because Mary even asked him at the end, is the devil dead? The paraphrase of that is, are you whole now? Have you baptized yourself in this blood? Have you freed yourself? Have you actually found salvation, redemption? Have you found that? And Nat's response is, I don't know. So I don't know.
Well, in speaking to that last scene, that final face-off that we're, kind of waiting for the entire film, this moment between, as actors, you and Idris Elba, where do you two go in that scene to figure out, the two perspectives of these men? Was this a scene that you all had time or plan to rehearse? or was it something that you kind of in the moment were like, we're both going to do our thing and come together, on camera?
Well, I'll give the straight answers. We never rehearsed it, and I mean that's kind of the beauty of working with an actor as formidable as Idris Elba. Where we all have at a certain point. It's about approach. It's about approach. Process is one thing, technique is one thing, craft is even another thing, but approach is where we got lucky because we differ in all those other things and different ways, but approach for whatever reason we were in alignment on that, and as was James, right? And our approach was we're just going to go in there and let it do what it do, like it's on. The crazy thing about that is it was scheduled to shoot way after the time we actually shot it. I think we shot it 3 weeks. It got pulled up. Things that happened, it got pulled up because of location, because of schedule, because of, at this point, I actually don't remember why it was pulled up, but it was pulled up, and so we're like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. So it was really a moment of, okay, you've done your work, I've done my work. Now it's an exercise in trust, right? In one's own instrument, but also in the ability to completely surrender to this gargantuan moment, this Greek moment, where these two men have come up against fate, and my fate is called Rufus Buck, and his fate is called Nat Love, and we are all going to be changed at the end of this. And so, in shooting it, I just remember coming in, and Rufus was already there. He was already set in there, and I had walked in, and I remember saying, I remember seeing his back, and all the feelings, all those 10-year-old feelings coming in, and also all the feelings of, here I am with my big brother. I'm talking about myself and Idris Elba, someone who I've, as much as I can, revered and studied, actually studied and really followed, and I followed in, I'm making my own way, and Driss had to make his own way. But there are times in which you come across a path and you find yourself in someone else's footsteps, or at least you can see them right next to yours. And we've come together in this moment, these four spirits, Jonathan, Idris, Nat, Rufus, and we're in fellowship with each other. And that was the scene, I mean, that's how the scene began. And then it was on. Then it was a mixture of, heart, will, stamina in some cases, vulnerability. It was a big exercise in vulnerability, restraint. I felt that both of us in those moments, and I know I can speak for myself, chiefly because there's so many times when you want to just jump to the end, shoot him, you don't work this whole time to kill this motherfucker. Do it, and that's what you say sometimes when you watch movies like this. Shoot him, you know what I mean? Like do it in the movie. Like, we've watched all the pain that this event has caused you. You're looking at, anybody, hero or heroine, you go, okay, finish it. But the restraint that it took, because it had to be fair, right? And then it comes full circle now. It has to be fair. Nat Love is not someone that can shoot a man in his back. Won't do it, And it's in hearing the story, and hearing and Rufus being so vulnerable and sharing his story with Nat. And Nat, there's so many things going on in his head. He says, I don't don't care how you were raised, but yet he's listening, because there's something to that. So that communion, which is a real warrior tenet, to take a life, to share life is a communal event, and that's kind of what we ended up trying to do.
No, it feels like he's listening too, because he knows it's, at first as an audience member, you're saying shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, because one, yes, you've been on this ride, but two, you're also like, don't let him manipulate you, don't let him,
Right.
trick you out of it. But it's not a manipulation, like you said. It's a vulnerability. It's a him, giving his final words. He knows, the end is coming, and Nat is kind of like almost allowing him to confess. It is a
Right.
confession.
Right. Right. And that's the fair thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. I mean, Nat is described so many times as, the angel of death. You know, you have to do your last will and testament, however it is you want to do that. The other thing about Nat is that he's also human. He's also like, hurry up, you know. But it's just the information that he gets changes his life. You know.
Well, when you were talking about how you've studied Idris and his career, and some of the choices that he's made on screen as an actor, what was something that you learned from being opposite him? Maybe not even just in that scene, but throughout this process of the film.
Oh man, I mean, for better or for worse, I mean, when you have risen to the place that Idris Elba is in his career, reputations travel, and you hear stories about the war stories about people auditioning for things like, him auditioning for Stringer Bell with a American accent, and even no one knowing he was English until he got the job, or his standoff between in American Gangster, the improv between he and Denzel Washington, the two of those guys going toe to toe, that's incredible. But I guess the thing I learned most about um, Mr. Elba, and something I really take from it, is that he I mean, it's no surprise, but he actually came down with COVID. This may not be as artistic as you hope, but he actually came down with COVID, and we got shut down, and we all did. It wasn't his fault anyway. Like we all got shut down, but
It actually happened the opposite.
like,
Y'all got shut down, and the next day he found out he had COVID.
yeah. So what I really took from that moment was, kind of how he handled it. And I've said it to him. The amount of grace and heart that he, walks around with is an example. It's really an example, and he doesn't have to behave that way. He's extremely talented, extremely handsome. You know what I mean? Like, those people don't have to. You don't have to be nice, but he is, and he's not just nice. He's gregarious, and he has a way of, um, you know, um, embodying kindness in a way that allows for the best work to be done. And it's not just like, oh yeah, he's a nice guy, but you also see that in his work. Which I really appreciate. I see that there is no differentiation between Idris Elba and the spirit of Idris Elba, and in some ways, the beautiful spirit of Rufus Buck, because I believe Rufus Buck is a beautiful character. As complex as Driss is, as just as complex as Rufus is. So he applies that. So it is good to see that. It is something that I not necessarily learned, but experienced, and therefore, which is even better than learning. Because now it's in my nervous system. Yeah.
Well, in working with Mr. Elba, I mean, this ensemble is just top to bottom, just A-list, all-star. You guys are all exactly. You're all top of your weight class.
Yeah.
It is really a superior ensemble, but in this one you are for now. One of the second, third times the de facto leader, the number one on the call sheet. So how did you navigate, working with and through all of these personalities, and kind of having to take some of this production on your shoulders?
Wow. I don't. I mean, it's true. But it is a odd, and yet not. Like so. I'm the eldest son in a Black Southern household. With a single mother.
Yeah.
for the most part. Um, and again, just like Idris, leads as an example. How he lives in the world and how he, lives in his characters. Taking on responsibility is not something that I am. I was also a very young father. I'm still a young father, but my daughter came when I was young. Relatively young. So responsibility is not something that I really shy away from. But it is different when it's something that is like you chose it. You know what I mean? Like I chose to be an actor to a degree. One could say it chose me, but I chose to engage it, and to really pursue it to this degree. And there is a moment where you go, oh, snap, like I'm doing a lot of talking here, or, if I'm working every day or, all these things. And those times are few and far in between because for me, I really believe, and this was said to me in drama school that, an actor is in the service industry. Mm. And it's also something that I learned from Chadwick Boseman, or I saw him example for me during the Five Bloods that, the higher up you are on the call sheet, the more responsibility you have, and it's support, right? When you're number one, you actually have the job to support everybody. And that's above and below the line, and that may not be what you want to hear. You know what I mean? Like when you finally get the position, and it comes and goes. I mean, next picture, you'll be something else or whatever it is. But it is a mentality, of what it is to really be in service of something, and ultimately I'm always serving the play, the play is the thing. And when you're serving a play, it doesn't really matter where you line up. Now, the day to day where it's like, I think about Lovecraft Country, and conversations that I would have with, say, an Ingenue Ellis, or Courtney B. Vance, where they're looking at me and saying, "So what you want to do?"
And you're like, me?
That's a moment where I'm like, "Ma'am, sir," but they're putting their faith in you in a way. And in whatever way it is, it differs, but for whatever reason, this story has chosen you and you're playing, the protagonist, for lack of a better term. You do the job, you get on the field and you quarterback, and it's different. As I said to you before, it's different. You really have to be open. You would think that it's about being, you know, you know, super focused and displaying your focus and all these things. There's a time for that, and trust me, when it's on, when it's like it's 4:00 in the morning, right? Your whole crew is tired, and you got to get this shot, and it's just on you. Everybody else is going home. You know what I mean? It's just on you. That's when it's time. That's when you gotta soldier up and bring it home. But you're built for that. I trust anybody that's in that position, plays Hamlet. You're not playing Hamlet for no reason. Just remember that, you're built for it, and trust in that, and trust in those who trust in you. That's really the big thing. Yeah.
You mentioned the late and truly great Chadwick Boseman. I'm so shocked to have realized and almost saddened that I didn't notice before that beautiful tribute to him on the side of that train in the film. I know obviously you didn't direct the movie, but what did it mean to see that, be a part of that, and to see people reacting to that?
Well, it means the most because James Samuel, is such a, let me just say it straight. Like he is such a student of pop culture, right? He knows it. Therefore, he's such a human of humanity. Like he understands people. He's a bit of a mad genius in a way. And he has a very unique heart and a very complex and vast love language, and this whole movie is an articulation of James's love language. And him being, my big brother, my brother, when I saw that, because I saw like everybody else on the day, like, because also James and I spoke a lot about some of the things like Carter and Carter, right? Like that's also something in there. Now, of course, is Sean and B, so it's like, okay, that's cool, but we knew that, Flowers, is Jay Leck, another one of our buddies, and I knew those things. He had pointed those things out. And so when I saw C.A. Boseman, I that moved me. And also because Delroy Lindo and I were on, we were on it together. And the set was built in a way that, we could step out and we could see it, and it was beautiful. And that's a lot about what the film is about, like the film is I call it a drum circle. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if any of our listeners or yourself, you've been to a proper drum circle, you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's okay. Well, you will at some point, where it's like, and it can happen like on the train, at the, in the park, wherever it's at, in a class, wherever you're at, like when you see a proper drum circle, you've got generations of people in a circle, and then you got the masculine, the feminine, you've got a mixture of all these people of all these ages coming together and moving to this music. It's a huge celebration of what it is to be alive, and that's what this piece is. And so when you see Boseman, when you see that, it's like, yeah, of course. And of course, it's James that has the wherewithal, to go and get that, and place that rhythm into the circle, so we can all move and dance to it. The movie is has the potential of being seen by millions and millions of people. If they see that, if they move to that rhythm a little bit, that's an homage to, one of the big reasons I am where I am in my life, not just in my career, in my life, so that's how I felt about it.
Well, in keeping with the rhythm of this movie, a big part of The Harder They Fall is there is lightness, there is fun, there's comedy, there's a wink and a smile. There's lightness to this. So talk me about getting a chance to kind of play those nods to camera with Nat, because there are a few, even just from the first minute, that I'm worth 10. Like, I need to make that a gift right now.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, much to James's credit, like, he had a way of keeping the bounce, and keeping the rhythm and keeping the metronome going, and making everything so much, for lack of a better term, fun, and jovial, which, for me in my brain and my process, I go, well, that's real, because no one's grumpy all the time, Though I will say to James, he's like, oh, you're so grumpy. I say, yeah, I'm grumpy. Only in the grumpy scenes, I'm grumpy. That's it. I feel like I'm looking at him like, bro, it's got, anyways. But yeah, the humor element, the tongue-in-cheek vibration of it, like the swag of it is such a real thing. And it's kind of a shame that we're just now seeing it, because it's always been there. It's always been a part of, honestly, it is a part of being alive. You can see the homeless guy on the street, walking, he's got this kind of bop to him, or the way he talks, he's got this rhythm to him, the way the barista girl, kind of like, puts a ponytail up and then, does it like, everyone's got that swag. Oh, you want a what? A macchiato? Macchiato. Why she say it like that? You know what I mean? It's just her own little, it's her own little human expression, but to play a character like Nat, and for him to oscillate between those two things, that spirit and soul kind of vibration so often was really cool. Even talk about the opening scene when we meet adult Nat. He's holding tears in his eyes, It's he's going back and forth with the scorpion, and when it's all said and done, He says, I'm worth 10. And it's like, what? What? It's just the truth of the moment, it's the truth of the moment. He's trying to get his woman back, Mary, Mary. I mean, he's doing everything but groveling, Mary, please, please, baby, please, baby, please, baby, please, please, yeah, please, Mary, please, 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 what was that kiss for then, and whack, he gets popped,
Kiss for then.
I mean, it's so much humanity, and then of course, I mean, I have to say this one when when we're leaving the town, right? I won't give the events, but when we're leaving the town, and he actually announces his name, you know, Nat Love. He says his name. I just think, oh man, how heroic is that? Like for me, I go back to when I was watching, Batman or something like that. Where like these guys didn't have to, say their name. They had the emblem, the S in the chest. I mean, Bond does. James Bond. You know what I mean? That was kind of a Bond moment. You know what I mean? Like to name yourself. In that moment, it's such a strong statement. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. You know what I mean? Like when you conjure up your own name, like how beautiful is that? How swaggy is that? Yeah, and that, I mean, that's just Nat. I mean, we can't even talk about Rufus Buck, when he opens up and he's standing there and it's like bang, 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 bang. Trudy Smith, I mean, more swag than, I mean, I don't know if the screen can contain it, Yeah, it's a celebration though. It's actually a celebration of one's individual humanity and culture and heritage. That's the beauty of it, and with all due respect, it's not on PBS. You know what I mean? We're not it's not a history piece, it's a now piece. Um yeah.
Yeah, it's a piece of entertainment that people can get in and get under and put the skin on. Speaking of putting the skin on, obviously you have to have Nat's scar
Yeah.
on you. Was that the moment, or what was the moment where you first felt like him? What did you put on in that first scene? Actually, what was the very first scene you shot?
Well, the first thing we shot was Wally Esco. Was it Wally Esco? He was leading up to Wally Esco. We were all around the campfire. It's one of those scenes, one of the campfire bits, which is a good scene to start with. It's one of those because we were all there, and that was fun. And we weren't on horses, so everyone could really feel themselves and didn't have to be self-conscious. If they were self-conscious, didn't have to feel it, with the horses there, but still felt that they were, in it, as it were. But no, the first time I felt like Nat, I mean, it's kind of like the moment, really the moment I met James Samuel, you know, the moment I met James Samuel, he like cast me, and it's just a cheat sheet, for an actor. There's a phrase, one of my something we used to say, where it's like, I am. You sit in a circle, it's kind of like pagans, right? But you sit in a circle, and you say to your castmates, I am Nat Love. Please see me as Nat Love. At least we would do that, for this iteration, right? And it seems so, and trust me, when I was like, 13, 14 years old, and like, drama class, theater class, it seemed like a, oh, okay, cool. Can't tell my mama that, my pastor mama, she would not like that. You know what I mean? But it really is like when you can see with the eyes of the character, and over time it happens faster and faster and faster. But then when you're seen, right? When you allow yourself to be seen as, Nat Love, you're him, and everything you do is him. When I never, one of the things I would say, one of the reasons I can probably not lose my mind working with some of the ensembles I've worked with is that I never see, them, they work at such a high level. They work with so much integrity. Um, and they're so talented they couldn't hide it if they wanted to. You know what I mean? Like I never saw Zazie Beats. You know what I mean? I saw Mary, you know. And I'm also nuts and I just call her Mary. You know, I just call her Mary, you know. We spoke yesterday and it was like it took me effort to say, you know, Zazie, you know. But Mary, I only see Mary, you know, I only see Bill, I only see Jim, you know. Mind you know that that's, you know, RJ and Eddie, but you allow your imagination to play and their imagination becomes real. So to that point, you know, and also by that point when I met James and really sitting with James, you know, in New Mexico, I had picked up, I had started, you know, I call it just allies, you know, things, exterior things that make me feel more like bring me closer to, you know, Nat Love's vibration, you know, and then you justify those exterior things, you know. I don't condone, you know, smoking, you know, but I did smoke, you know, for the time that I was preparing, shooting, and a little bit after because I you got to kick the habit, you know.
It's
Um, yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, you know. But yeah, like all those little accoutrement, you know, that make us who we are, you know, those things, and then but ultimately being seen and seen as Nat, you know, and again another testament to James, who looks at his actors and goes, "That's Nat Love." He'll tell the story that when he cast me off an interview, you know, and he didn't because he was searching for, hunting for, if you will, Nat, you know, and so he saw something. It's like, oh, that's Nat, and so my job was just not to hide that, you know, and be that and develop that. So I think when I met with him, when I sat with him, I was Nat Love.
Well, listen, y'all, that was some of the best advice that you could get because if you weren't going to mention it, I was. Y'all can get cast from an interview, so keep that in mind next time you're talking to someone like me. Just kidding. But thank you so much, Jonathan, for diving into your process, for diving into this film. Please check out more interviews where this man talks about The Harder They Fall because we could do it for hours, but we unfortunately don't have that time. So on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. Thanks, Jonathan.